of the world's toughest prisons.
It's definitely quite intimidating.
8 famous faces brave enough to go in them.
You don't think I need a bulletproof vest?
To see for themselves if they can survive.
I'm gonna get out, man. I wanna get out.
Behind bars.
That's pretty disgusting.
I'm Donal MacIntyre, and I'm on my way to America's biggest maximum security prison, Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola. For the first time in my life, I'm going to spend time behind bars, side by side with murderers and rapists who are serving some of the toughest prison sentences in America.
I've spent a lot of time putting some serious people in jail. That's been my job, and for the first time going to a maximum security prison, I'll be experiencing and seeing and witnessing the deprivation that my work has imposed upon real people with real human stories.
5,000 inmates are locked up here, the majority of them serving life. And in Louisiana, a life sentence really does mean until the day you die.
I don't want to give any of these guys an easy way out, because for guys like that, I think, life should mean life.
I'm going behind bars to get a real taste of prison. During my time inside, I'll come face to face with cold-blooded rapists and killers.
Crime was my drug of choice, so to speak.
Nothing better gonna happen for me. I'm gonna end up dead in here.
This is the end of my life right here.
Discover how condemned men are put to death in Angola's execution chamber. Do hard labor alongside other inmates in this scorching Louisiana heat. Be fed prison food. Get hunted down by prison dogs. And spend a night locked up in Angola's notorious death cell. Angola is the biggest prison in the United States. Set on a former slave plantation, inmates are housed in 6 separate prison camps spread over 28 square miles. With the alligator-infested Mississippi River bordering it on 3 sides, making escape virtually impossible, no wonder Angola is known as the Alcatraz of the South. I'm being driven into the heart of the prison on a convict bus, just like any new inmate would be.
What does it mean for some of the prisoners when they come in here? They could be teenagers, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, you're probably going to die here.
Well, if he's sentenced to life, he will probably die here.
And has there been any escapes?
If you escape here, most of ours that have escaped the compounds never left the penitentiary. If you look up in the front of us, we have a farm line out today, working out in the crops.
It looks like a scene you could have imagined in plantation days.
It's just about the same thing.
It looked backbreaking and soul-destroying. I was told that all inmates are forced to work the fields when they first arrive, and I wondered if that's what they had in store for me. We'd now arrived at the entrance of the main prison.
When you first come to Angola as a prisoner, this is the first place you come to.
Right.
This is the start of a lifetime in jail. This is pretty daunting, isn't it?
I felt apprehensive and on edge about what was waiting for me once past this final security checkpoint. This was the start of my time behind bars. Angola is home to some of America's most notorious inmates, and I'm beginning my time inside by meeting one of them. Serial rapist and sexual predator John B. Simonis has spent the last 26 years of his life locked up on his own in solitary confinement. But that's not all. I've been told he's serving a staggering 2,500 years for his crimes.
Prison time is just mounting for the admitted ski mask rapist John Simonis.
In 1981, John B. Simonis was sentenced to serve 2,527 years in prison. On top of this, he was also given 20 life sentences. And for good reason. Simonis admitted to committing over 100 brutal rapes and armed robberies over a 3-year period.
You know, I hold a disdain for sexual predators, a disdain. And I'm against the death penalty, but in my gut, in my belly, you know, for every sexual predator, you know, I'm saying, you know, I'd kill him myself.
An entire wing of the prison camp where Simonis is housed has to be locked down for my meeting to take place.
The corridor is remarkably quiet now.
Extra officers have been drafted in, and I can sense that the atmosphere is tense.
He's one of the most notorious prisoners in the entire American prison system.
I've met some menacing people in my time, but even I'm starting to feel on edge.
This is a dangerous man. 2,500 years worth of jail sentence, 19 life sentences, and then another life sentence on the back of it, you know.
We got him.
And you got him? Okay.
Yeah, I just need to get the gate open right there.
The prison authorities are taking no risks. Just how much of a threat is this man?
I'm John Simonis. I'm a resident of Louisiana State Penitentiary, where I've been for the last 26 years in maximum security, where I've been locked in a cell for 23 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Were there any triggers in your criminality behavior? Was it part of your DNA? Was it born? Were you made? Or was it just...
It's just a choice. You know, it's something I grew to. It's just like some people adapted to sports. Me, I was into excitement and adrenaline and stimulation. Anything that would create an element of risk that I could enjoy, that would produce that kind of a high that I was looking for. Crime was my drug of choice, so to speak.
You became addicted to that?
Yeah, I became addicted to the excitement. I mean, I could have done the same thing if I had probably been into racing cars or climbing mountains, but crime had those various different facets of elements where it had so much to offer and different kind of activities you wanted to engage in.
I was shocked by how rationally he talked about his crimes. Before the meeting, I'd read that Simonis would often stalk a couple to their home, break in, and then brutally rape and assault the woman in full view of her husband, who he'd tied up.
Looking back now, are you a different? Are you a different person?
I have regrets. I mean, it's just that it doesn't do to dwell too much on the past. I feel bad for the victims and stuff like that. At the time, you don't really concern yourself too much about the consequences, and you don't care too much about the people you're victimizing.
I tried to push him more on this, but Simonis put his guard up, so I decided to change tack and ask him what being in solitary confinement for 25 years has been like.
People were never a necessity in my life. I didn't require them. And so when I came here, when I was isolated, the fact that I was by myself now and in a cell, it wasn't that traumatic for me. When you're living in a cell for like 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 25, 30 years, you know, you learn to adjust to it. You're looking out almost like a fish in a fishbowl. My cell was about the equivalent of a small bathroom. Instead of a tub, we had a bed. And so you ate there, you slept there, you entertained yourself there, and it was a matter of dealing with each day on a daily basis as far as what was going to get me through this day. Life is as good or as bad as I want it to be. I control how I want my life to be. You know, I first had to accept, first and foremost, that this is where I am, this is where I'll be, and this is where I'll die. And once you accept that, it's easier to deal with the situation.
When you die here, which you will die here,
yes.
Will your family take your coffin and bury you, or will you be buried here in the prison?
No, I've already filled out a will to be buried here. I figured this is where I came at the age of 31, and I figured I spent more time here than any place else in the world. I figured if I die here, this would be the appropriate place for me to bury. I mean, we're dead, we're dead.
If there hadn't been a change in Louisiana law in 1976, Simonis could have been given the death penalty for his sex crimes.
So a man has raped a woman and doesn't apologize for it, really. Passes it off as kind of nothing more than kind of adrenaline junkie that feel that something a gambler addiction would have. This is hot Louisiana sunshine, and as he's gone, it's like a little tingling of cold air, surface tension on my arms. I don't know where that's come from.
Meeting Simonis had really shaken me. I went back to the main prison, hoping that not all the other inmates I'd talked to would be as cold and as unnerving as him. Still to come, I spent the entire night locked up in Angola's death cell.
I don't know how anyone could survive in here.
Hear prison horror stories.
I know of a guy that was so serious about killing himself, he ate his veins out.
And get taken to the execution chamber.
How many men have died here?
With me?
Yeah.
6.
I'm Donal MacIntyre, and I'm in Louisiana State Penitentiary, otherwise known as Angola, where the majority of inmates are serving life sentences and know they will die behind bars. Coming up, I meet Angola's longest serving inmate and discover he's killed 2 men whilst behind bars.
And you can imagine him on his hunkers, just nutting you.
Come face to face with a teen gangster.
Nothing better gonna happen for me. I'm gonna end up dead in here.
And sweated out on a farm line in the scorching Louisiana heat.
Get real hot out here.
It's coming to the end of my first day inside, but I want to get a taste of incarceration for real. So the prison has allowed me to spend the entire night locked up on my own in Angola's notorious death cell. This is where a death row inmate spends his last night before being executed. As it's my first time in a prison, I want to hear firsthand just what to expect. Lane Nelson arrived in Angola in 1981 on a first-degree murder charge and spent the next 8 years on death row. He came within just 5 days of being executed.
I was going to fast, and I was not going to walk on my own power. I was going to let them carry me. I wasn't going to fight them or anything, because there was no sense of that. But I wasn't going to have myself walk to my own death.
Some people committed suicide on death row were there. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
I know of a guy that was so serious about killing himself, he was in a cell and he ate his veins out of his arm, of his wrist.
You just simply chew the veins.
Out, yeah.
Things can't get much bleaker than that. In that room, which I'll be sleeping in tonight, it must have some very dark vibes in that room.
Yeah, for sure you're going to be staying in a cell that at least a few guys stayed into their last minute. Try to get into that role. Yeah, look back. Yeah, make it meaningful. If you're going to stay in there, make it meaningful. And also when you're in there, think about staying there for 30, 35 years like those guys did. Take care.
Take care.
Lane's words had a big impact on me. In the final few hours before going into the cell, I started to imagine what this would be like if I was a real inmate with only a few hours to live.
It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to spend the night in the death cell. I've never spent any time in a cell overnight before. I'm going there by myself, and I'm going to try and live the next 12 hours as my last. This is it.
This is number 1 cell.
This is sparse, isn't it? Isn't it? Is this the most basic cell in the entire prison?
Yeah. Your basics should be your toilet tissue, toothbrush, toothpaste. You can have a Bible, a lockdown. That's what you're allowed to have. No TVs. That's it.
It's basic. Thinking time. Time for thinking.
As the door slams shut, the realization sets in. I'm going to be in here for the next 8 hours. If this was my last night on Earth, it would be horrific. But what was worse was the thought of spending 30 years in a cell like this. I can't settle. It feels claustrophobic. I was haunted by the ghosts of the men who spent their last night alive in here. I lose track of time. I'm exhausted, but I can't really sleep. And I lie down as there's nothing else to do. How anyone could live like this for 20 or 30 years is just beyond me.
How you doing?
Very good.
Brilliant.
All right.
What time is it?
It's 5:20.
Good egg. I think this is a porridge thing, is it? I'll tell you now. Much porridge. If I had another 30 years as a prisoner, then you could say, well, my biggest ambition would be to be, a really good father. That's all. And I imagine if you were here, you'd be thinking that, obviously you'd have failed in that respect, and that would be probably one of your biggest regrets, would be mine. I know I'm always going to be a terrible husband, but after that has to be a good dad. I don't know how anyone could survive in here for, as they do, quarter century. This is your world. If you weren't mad coming in, you're definitely mad going out.
Mr. MacIntyre, your time's up.
I'm delighted with that.
It was a huge relief to be let out, and I was glad I'd only had to spend one night banged up. If I was a real inmate coming out of the death cell, my next stop would be just a few feet away. Burl Kane, the warden of the prison, is going to escort me to the death chamber, where 27 men have been executed in the past 32 years.
Yeah, this is the way they walk when we're going to the execution chamber. They go right through here. He will have eaten the last meal probably in here, depending on his behavior and his demeanor. Our goal is that this is terrible to put like this, but it's our goal that we don't have to carry him in here. We want him to walk in here, and because it's more traumatic for everybody.
In 1991, Angola replaced the electric chair with the lethal injection. Once the condemned man is strapped down, 2 intravenous tubes are inserted into each arm that deliver a combination of 3 drugs. The first drug acts as an anesthetic. The second one stops him from breathing and also paralyzes parts of the body. The third and final drug gives a fatal heart attack. Some experts claim that the condemned man can suffer excruciating pain throughout this ordeal. The whole process takes about 20 minutes.
I think that they think it's really not going to happen until it happens, because they keep thinking they'll get a stay or something.
I haven't read where you have given an opinion upon your personal view on the death penalty.
I just feel like that everyone we've executed had been guilty, and God help us if we ever executed someone who weren't.
How many men have died here?
With me?
Yeah.
6.
6. And how has that changed you?
It made me hate crime. It's made me want to do a better job here of rehabilitating these guys.
I still believe that life should mean life, but to die of natural causes is one thing. The brutal reality of putting people to death is another.
In just a few months, maybe a few weeks, it's only a matter of time. There will be the pardons, there will be the reprieves, but a man is going to die on that gurney table in there. And I think that's wrong. I don't think anybody has a right to take anybody's life, least of all the state. It's enough that they locked them away, and here they locked them away for life, so there's no threat.
Back in the main prison complex, I wanted to see what kind of life Lane Nelson had made for himself since winning an appeal and escaping the death penalty. I'm going to meet up with Lane on what they call the Walk, a caged passageway that runs right the way through the main prison.
All the way down.
It strikes me that for many of the inmates here, the Walk is the closest they can get to a feeling of freedom.
This is the walk. This is a long walkway. It's about, I would say, 3 miles from that end of the walk to the very end over there.
3 miles?
About 2.5, 3. Yeah, and in landmass, this is it's as big as Manhattan.
I'm really starting to get a sense of how massive this place is and how small and isolated you must feel if you're an inmate here. Lane wanted to show me around the East Yard, the part of the prison that he calls home. But Lane doesn't live in a cell block. Since coming off death row, Lane has kept his head down and is now allowed to live in a dormitory which he shares with 64 other men. This is deemed a privilege in Angola.
Got 2 lockers.
So this is your life, basically?
Yeah, that's it. This is my space. So I got this guy sleeping here, got another guy sleeping there. If this guy's got the flu, he can cough and sneeze on me all night. We had beans and rice in the kitchen. He ate his share of beans.
You're getting his flavor.
He can do that all night.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what prison is.
How soon does it take you to get used to the fact that the privacy's gone?
Real soon. Because you got to go. You got to go. Yeah.
When you graduate to a dorm, this is like as good as it gets.
Yeah, dormitory is the best living conditions in Angola.
This is the Hilton of the most secure and most dangerous prisons in the US. And that's it. It doesn't get better than that.
I find out that to earn the right to live in a dormitory, inmates have to be well behaved and hold down often grueling jobs. Angola is a working farm with inmates doing hard labour in much the same way as slaves once did in the plantation days. I wanted to get a real sense of this tough physical work, so I headed out to join one of the inmate farm lines where I was paired up with Roy Morgan, another lifer.
So how many crates you do in a day?
You might get about 5, 6, 7, 8 crates a day.
I noticed armed guards keeping watch on the 1,000 inmates who are forced to work out here for as little as 2 cents an hour.
Just be so hot out here sometimes. It get real hot out here. That's when it...
Well, 100 degrees?
It get a little more than that. More than that.
How many hours are you working, Morgan?
7 in the morning to about 3 o'clock. We go back.
I'd been working for less than an hour, but in this heat, even I was finding it backbreaking. I wanted to know what Morgan's story was.
So how long have you been in here in total? 24? 25?
Altogether, 27 years in the penitentiary. It don't seem like it.
You're here forever, are you?
I got a life sentence on first offense.
First offense?
Yes, sir. First time in Louisiana State Penitentiary. And I have a rape charge.
A rape charge, yes, yeah. How old were you when you...
I was 22 years old.
22?
Yes, sir.
You think you paid for your crime already?
Yes, indeed. Over, I done did.
Morgan's sentence served as a harsh reminder to me of just how tough the Louisiana sentencing laws are. I was shocked. He seemed resigned to spending the rest of his life working on the farm. After 27 years of imprisonment and hard labour, Morgan had been tamed by Angola's tough regime.
The courts impose a sentence on you, and that sentence is to deprive you of your liberty, not to force you to work in 100 degrees heat and to become a farm labourer. And that's the issue, you know. It's like, you know, deprive me of my liberty. That's what society can choose to do, but you can't force me to be a farm labourer.
On my return to the main prison, I started to see the effect this had. Inmates looked exhausted, drained, and resigned. Some looked like broken men.
In this part, every privilege these guys, I think, earn, they have to be well behaved for about 10 years. These are killers, murderers, rapists, and they're controlling every emotion just to get one privilege. It's so subdued in these wings here, because this is where the older men, I think they've now accepted that forever is forever. Then they start to try and cope.
Coming up, I get close to an inmate who stabbed 9 men in his first month inside.
I was very dangerous, very dangerous.
Get hunted down by dogs. And meet Angola's longest serving inmate who's been locked up here since he was 17.
You know where I like to be? Out the gate.
I'm Donal MacIntyre, and I'm in Angola, America's biggest maximum security prison. Still to come, I find out what it's like to be a prisoner on the run. sit down with a teen killer facing the rest of his life behind bars. And hear about Angola's brutal past.
A guy would come along with a baseball bat and knock your brains out.
It's my third day, and I'm heading to meet a man who was just 17 when he was first imprisoned here. Now, he is 72. Sammy Robinson has stabbed and beaten other inmates to death and is locked up in a cell block on his own. He is the longest-serving inmate in Louisiana history, locked up in Angola for 54 years and still feared. The prison wouldn't let the camera crew come down the cell wing with me. I had to meet him face to face on my own. 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years.
And you still haven't, but that was 1953 and you haven't left?
Yeah, I ain't never left. We got penitentiary time. Things happened in penitentiary.
Now what did you do to earn that extra time here?
Sure do.
So how are you getting through the days?
It's a bad situation. It's fucked up. I ain't crazy. Like a lot of dudes who come in, hurt themselves, kill themselves. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, you must
I'm
have...
strong. I'm a strong person.
Have you seen a lot of people kill themselves here in the years?
I see a whole bunch of them. Hang yourself. I bet you one thing, you can be blamed. I ain't gonna kill myself.
I mean, you're still very angry. You've been here since you've been 17, naturally. I mean, you're not resigned to your fate.
But check this out. If you was in penitentiary, you understand, you lost your freedom for 50-some years, how you feel?
I feel bitter, angry, and being...
How you want me to do this? You know,
I don't want you to do anything.
But you act like that, you understand?
Yeah.
I can't be that. Every time I wake up in the morning, I'm in here. You think I'm feeling good? No, I don't feel good. I feel bad when I wake up. And yeah, this is the worst place in the world right here in Louisiana, Penitentiary. This is the worst place in the world. You know where I like to be? Out that gate. Out that front gate. That's where I like to be.
Nothing had quite prepared me for meeting Sammy. It's a man who came here in 53 as a 16-year-old. And that man hasn't changed. He's as angry as the day he arrived. You can imagine him on his hunkers just nutting you or stabbing you. And when you sit with someone like that, you have no idea what they're going to do. I've met people who hitmen, gangs. I've met a hitman who killed 27 people. And this guy still has a stare which is more piercing than any kind of gangster or teenage thug I've met. And these guys have taken lives, just like Sammy. But that, can you imagine how many lives that man would have taken if he wasn't taken off the streets? Angola is known as the Alcatraz of the South, and for good reason. Alligators lurk in the foreboding Mississippi River that surrounds the prison on 3 sides. Snake-infested forest and Louisiana swampland borders the other. But even with these natural deterrents, desperate inmates have been known to try and make a run for it. I meet up with Colonel Norwood, who heads up Angola's elite chase team, to find out more. So, Colonel, these are bloodhounds. Now, they have a purpose. What's the purpose here?
Their purpose is the last line of defense for the penitentiary. It's our job to get the bloodhounds out, get behind them, and apprehend the inmate. You never know when one's going to run.
And were you here the last time the dogs were unleashed?
Oh, yeah.
And what happened?
He was caught in about 30 minutes.
Colonel Norwood offers me the chance to put the bloodhounds to the test. I want to feel what it must be like to try and make a run for it. Leroy Cutright is my accomplice, an inmate serving a life sentence for murder. What's the stick for, Leroy, by the way?
Snakes and wild hog, bear.
Me and Leroy head off, and I'm determined to make this as difficult as I can for the bloodhounds. But the conditions don't help. It's hot and very humid, and I'm dripping with sweat. There's no clear path, and the dense swampland is hard to negotiate. Knowing that the bloodhounds are hot on our trail only increases the pressure. How often have you done this exercise?
Practically every day.
Oh, boy, that a man.
We were given 20 minutes running in part forest, woodland and swamp. No idea where we were, and we were still tracked down, and it was so easy. If I was here, and I think for most people here for their first 10 years, every waking moment is kind of interrupted by thoughts of an escape attempt like this.
I now wanted to come face to face with one of Angola's youngest inmates. So I headed for one of Angola's maximum security wings to meet 19-year-old Anthony Johnson. Anthony was in one of Louisiana's most notorious street gangs, the Baton Rouge Southside Wrecking Crew. At just 17, he was convicted of murder and given a life sentence without parole.
Anthony, I'm Donal. How you doing?
Because he's in lockdown, Anthony can only be brought out of his cell to talk to me in handcuffs and leg irons.
You know, you're involved in drugs and gangs and all that in Baton Rouge. Was that kind of the culture you're involved in, a lot of young kids doing that?
I want to get the fast money, live that life. You know, sex, money, and drugs.
And did you have sex, money, and drugs all at one time? Did you have a good life?
Yeah, I had a good life. But see, that fast life will get you caught up in here. Look where I'm at now.
Anthony is in lockdown, banged up for 23 hours every day. I found my 8-hour stretch behind bars tough going. I couldn't imagine how a 19-year-old kid copes locked up in a 6x9 cell all day long.
You really just focus, you know what I'm saying? You really focus a lot, and you just sit back and think. You're like, man, I'm really in here. You know, reality hits you in your face. You're like, man, I'm really here. You know what I'm saying? I got a life sentence. You know, what can I do? You know what I'm saying? I can't do the same thing I was doing out there, because ain't nothing better gonna happen for me. I'm gonna end up dead in here.
The law says you're gonna be here till you die.
That's what they say.
That's tough, though.
That's tough, you know.
Do you think about it?
I don't try to think that way. To me, that's thinking negative. You know what I'm saying? I always think positive, that, you know, I know the Lord gonna pull it through for me.
What is your plan for not the next day, the next week, next month, next year, for your next decade and the decade after that?
I put in my mind I don't want to be here 40, 50 years, you know, but my plan is to get out here. That's my main goal, to get out of jail, all right?
Very much.
All right.
Take care, man. Good to see you later, okay? Reminding him of telling him that the hopeless position he's in, I felt as if I was kind of really making his predicament worse.
Being in lockdown is tough, but Anthony has it easy compared to how Angola used to be. This prison used to be one of the most violent in America, where gangs ran wild and inmates armed themselves with knives. Andrew Joseph has lived to tell the tale, unlike some of his victims. He's now 77 years old, and I went to meet him in the prison hospital.
When did you first come into Angola?
1952.
And what were you in here for?
Burglary, simple burglary.
But when you were first here, were there fightings?
Killings.
Killings?
Yeah. People were getting killed on a regular basis. They were getting stabbed all the time. I've seen people get killed on the yards at recreational games. And while you watching the game, a guy would come along with a baseball bat and knock your brains out. In those days, the first thing you can do is buy a knife. The inmate guard sold knives. I bought 2, and I used them. I used them very viciously because I was scared to death. Going down there in that shower with all them inmates, knowing I was young and tender and pretty, knowing what they wanted, and when they look at me, I would go to work on them.
And so did you kind of stab a man in here in your first stint?
The first month, 9 people. The very first month. And I was doing that out of fear. I started being the perpetrator.
What kind of things did you do to them? Humiliate them, beat them up, abuse them?
Beat them up, sexually abused them.
Still perhaps deserve to be here?
Yeah, I'm not gonna play games with myself. I've done some terrible things.
Whilst Andrew Joseph's past is truly shocking, he now seemed a very different man. So what had changed him?
You know, my transformation came through the Word of God. I mean, people today, you know, they don't even think about the life that I used to live, you know?
Anybody who knew you in the 50s, who knew you as a violent, dangerous man, what do they think when they now understand that you are a pastor
Some of them don't believe, still don't trust me after 30 years of ministering. So people are like that.
Still suspicious of you after 30 years, and you've had, a clean record effectively for 30 years.
Yeah.
Do you think life should always mean life?
You got some people here that don't need to ever go home. And then you got some people here that need to be out, that can go out and function. I might be one of the ones that die here, but it won't be because I won't be ready for freedom. I'm ready for freedom. Might not never get it. If I die, I don't want to even go out in the street. I want them to bury me here because everybody I know me here. My family is here. You live with people 30 years. What else can you, that's family, man.
It's a man who's changed. It's a man who this prison gave a second chance to and who has redeemed himself. And it shows that you can create a community, out of the worst of circumstances. They stabbed 9 people in his first 2 weeks or 3 weeks here. And now he's a benign pastor. You feel as if he's wise. He's a wise man.
It didn't seem right that old men like Andrew Joseph, men who had transformed their lives for the better, would end up having to die here in Angola.
In memory of the unknown buried here, remember not my name, nor my sins, nor guilt, nor shame, only that I was a man. This is how they treat their dead, and that is extraordinary. For some of the crimes these guys have committed, to have anybody attend your funeral service and doing anything other than cartwheels and celebrations is extraordinary. It's not a bad resting place for a murderer, is it, though? Hi, guys.
A few miles from the cemetery and well away from the main prison complex, I found the prison coffin makers. Joseph Greco and David Bacon are both serving life sentences for murder.
How many inmates have died? How many coffins have you guys made?
In total, I probably made about 70, 80 caskets.
You're in here for life.
I'm not the same young man that I was 20 years ago when I got here. There's so many different factors why people come to prison and what got them into this trouble. It happens in the blink of an eye, and there's a lot of men here, like ourselves, that if given a second chance, would be successful in society and would even be an asset to our communities.
What was your mistake? I mean, what happened?
My mistake was going out, drinking, and, end up taking somebody's life. And it's a shame,
And who was that?
A patron in a ballroom, I found myself in an 8x10 cell in maximum security lockdown, 23 hours out of 24. I was brought down to my bare self, my bare individualism, my bare soul. I didn't have anything or anybody in that cell with me. I didn't have anything. And I realized, this is the end of my life right here.
You don't know how precious something is till you don't have it anymore. And that starts with your family. It goes deeper than that. The carpet, walking on carpet. I mean, when I first came around some carpet, I took my shoes off and my socks off, and I just wanted to feel it under my bare feet. To be able to sit in the privacy and the peace and quiet of your own home on a comfortable sofa and watch television or just relax with your loved one.
Out of all the inmates I'd met, these 2 men showed the most remorse. It made me really question whether life should always mean life.
What sentence would you give you?
Oh, I don't know.
You've been here 20 years, so think about it.
I think 20 years is plenty.
Okay, you think 20 years is plenty. But what do you think is fair? I mean, I know what sentence the British courts would give you. They give you 12 years, but you'd probably serve 8. What sentence do you think your crime deserved?
It's a hard answer. Yeah. It's a hard answer to give, and I'm almost getting emotional because a man lost his life. He won't be back. He won't be back. He had 2 daughters. I didn't know the man, but his daughters won't see him again. For me to put a number on it, I may be wrong in that respect because there's a man that's not going to come back. But if I had to put a number on it, I would say 20 years.
What sentence would you give you?
Outside of Louisiana law, I'd have gave myself 15 years.
I wanted to find out how long it had taken Greco to get the privileged job as a coffin maker.
When I first got here, I went straight to lockdown. And from there, I worked in cell block. which is a cell block that goes out in the line and you stay out there all day long with a ditch bank blade. Times where my face done split in half because the sun done beat me so bad.
Hands blistered.
And I stayed out in the field 5 years before I got my first job. And my first job was cutting grass. And I worked hard, and I don't make no excuse for that, because I'm glad that everything that I've earned, I had to earn every step of the way, because it's made me the person that I am today.
It took you 5 years of that kind of field work in this kind of heat in order just to move a little bit to
move that far.
Move that far.
I was beginning to understand how Angola works. Take men who had committed some of the worst crimes in society, break them down by hard labor, wait until they've given up all hope of being released, and then allow them the chance to try and live productive lives on the inside. After the break, some home truths for the teen killer who's still fighting the system.
I know, you know what I'm saying? I know I'm going home.
For the past 4 days, I've been getting a taste of life as an inmate in America's biggest maximum security prison. It's my final day here, and I've asked to see Anthony Johnson again, whose bleak prospects disturbed me. Anthony will be spending the rest of his natural life behind bars. During my time in here, I've come to realize that if you fight the system, prison life will be brutal. So I wanted to find out whether Anthony was ready to buy into the regime and try and build a life for himself inside.
Yeah, I've been all right.
Yeah? Important as hope is to get out, there still is hope inside here.
Some people look at this day home for the rest of their life. You know, me, I don't look at, stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Because I know, you know what I'm saying? I know I'm going home. It ain't no, I doubt in my mind that I'm not going home. This is something I know.
Offenders like you are released back into the community, and 50% of them reoffend and are caught.
See, what people fail to realize, some people come in here and better themselves with sense. Some people don't. Me, I come here to better myself with sense, not to be stupid once again, to get myself put back in this predicament if I ever go home. Lord say the same.
Yeah. I don't know if you can take some comfort from this, although you're facing a lifetime in prison, is that, there is a great quality of life to be had here. People got mates, they've got buddies, they've made families within here.
I don't care. I know they got hope in here, but I don't really care about this penitentiary period. I'm just locked up in here. So for this meantime that I'm here, yeah, this is my home, but I'm not trying to make it my home forever.
There is hope inside the walls of this prison, and the sooner you buy into that, the better quality of life you have. Listen, best of luck, man. And if you ever get out, just keep it straight and keep it clean, man.
I got you.
Come on, we should tuck in.
He was clearly still angry and unable to accept his fate as a young man who will never see freedom again.
For him, hope, which he has plenty of, really means denial. And I'm not going to deny him, this manufactured hope, because this guy needs all he can get. He's going to be here for the rest of his natural life.
To truly understand Angola, I think you have to experience it. I've been inside Angola for 4 very long days. I've eaten their food, been locked up overnight in a cell, worked on one of their convict farm lines, and have been chased by their dogs. But I've changed my mind about locking people up for life. Some of the men I've met have committed the most awful of crimes, and I think they deserve to die behind bars. But for others, I'm not so sure anymore.
It cannot be right that in all instances that we lock a man up here forever for one mistake. And if there's anything about a prison system, everybody deserves a second chance. And we're talking about giving somebody a second chance who has been a good citizen in this strange kind of model prison community for 25, 35, 40 years. Just maybe we can give the guy a break. Maybe we can count that as an opportunity, as a reason to give them a real second chance outside these forested walls.